All right, we'll get things going. Good evening. Welcome to the March 13th, 2023 of the Marshfield Planning Board. The time is now 7:02 p.m. Tonight's meeting is being recorded by MCTV, and we are holding a live remote meeting via Zoom. Our members here tonight are Katie O'Donnell, Nick Papastratis, and I am Mike Viviano, the chair. Absent tonight is Fred Greco and Kevin Cantwell. Also with us tonight is Scott DeCastro, our associate member, Greg Guimont, our town planner, and Karen Horn, our assistant town planner. At this time, I'll make a motion to open tonight's public meeting. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell. Aye, Katie O'Donnell.
Oh, and we have the reading of the notice. Sorry. All right, we got Katie, Nick
Papastratis, aye.
And Mike Viviano, aye. Okay, let's see the agenda. We're voting on the decision. First agenda item to 965, 985 Plain Street.
So Mike, I've emailed the board out the draft decision. I've also sent it to the applicant's attorney. There is a few changes on the draft. On page 1, we would remove Fred Monaco because he will not be present tonight to vote. On page 6, the board gets to choose Barstow, Briggs, or Tinkham for the road name of Road A, which runs behind the Buds facility. It's the connecting road that goes from the School Street, the extension of School Street over to Lone Street. And on page 7, we don't need condition 13 that I had added in based on DPW comments we got late Friday afternoon. The applicant's engineers have added or made the corrections to the plan sheet, so we no longer need condition number 13. And that's it as far as the decision modifications.
Yeah, what were the 3 street names again? I don't have it in front of me.
Barstow, Briggs, and Tinkham. So those are all older family names from that area in consultation with the Historic Commission that do not have street names already. Most of the property owner ones, Ames, Joyce, Hatch, they're already taken for other streets and road names. So these are names that have not been used yet in town for roads.
Hey, you guys have any opinion on that?
No, not really. This is kind of a tough decision.
You say the middle one was Briggs, Briggs?
Yes, 2 Gs.
2 Gs. I like
that sounds most familiar to me, but yeah, I don't know.
I think of somebody having to say Tinkham on the phone, trying to give somebody their address, and they're gonna be like, "Wait, what are you saying?" That's gonna be terrible for those people.
Well, and there's Tinkham's in Duxbury, I believe, and also in Pembroke. So
don't you compare us to Duxbury, Greg? We don't do that.
Well, I did say Pembroke as well.
Okay. Katie likes Briggs. I like Briggs. Nick, you like any of them?
Sure, Briggs. How about that?
Congratulations. We just named a street. It's our own little baby. All right. Any issues with the decision at all? Are you guys ready to vote? All right. Seeing none, I'll make a motion that we approve the decision as written and as Greg described earlier for 965 through 985 Plain Street. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell. Aye, Katie.
Nick
Papastratis, aye.
And I, Mike Viviano, for Briggs. Sounds good. All right, moving on. Greg, zoning. Yeah, thank you. Greg, zoning articles for spring annual town meeting?
Yes. Can you see the screen?
We can.
Okay. So these are the zoning articles that were proposed and submitted for the annual spring town meeting. 2 of them are linked for self-storage. One of them is the map change from B3 to R3 on Article 13. And these are the article numbers for the warrant. Article 13 is the educational facilities change in the table of use, which may sound familiar, and I'll explain that. Article 14 and 15 are linked because that's related to the accessory apartments. And Article 16 was originally something that the Brent Rock Association had asked for, but it morphed into a town-wide community service announcements. So I'll go into the details. Hold on one second, sorry. I'll just, I was trying to go to slideshow. Oh, here we go. So the first one, Article 10, is to put in self-storage or self-service storage facility with no outside storage. We have a number of storage facilities in the town. We have used the building commissioner's interpretation that warehouse was the closest use, and that's how they've happened in the past. But we felt in consultation with the building commissioner and several other property owners that it made sense to actually give them their own use category. So the idea is this would be allowed in the B1, B2, B3, I1, and it would be a special permit in the WRPD overlay district. And then the second article is actually a definition for self-service storage facility. So it's clear what we mean by those. We've had people in the past come in and ask about self-storage facilities that had bathrooms and furniture and living rooms and stuff that people could have their boats and their other things in there, or cars, and then they could have some friends over and I don't know, talk about the car or wax the car or something. We wanted to make clear that these were not residential units. These were self-storage units. So that's why we felt that a definition was needed. Anything for those two articles? Questions?
Anyone here from the public for those two? And since we're sharing the screen, I can't really see many. So if the public has any questions, you can unmute and just let us know.
There, I put you back on.
Okay.
And let's put you on gallery view. I don't see any hands up. So going back, we'll go to, oops. Here we go. Article 12 is a map change for the area in green shown on the screen is the currently B3. The area where the kind of Barney purple pink color overlay running from Adams Street south to Heather Street is what we're proposing to change to R3. And this one had been brought up by a resident in the area a few months ago in discussions with the planning board members.
Yeah, this is the one with the new house just went in on Ocean Street.
Yes.
Yeah. Is any questions from the board on this one?
Nope.
No.
Okay. Are there any questions from the public, because it affects a few people?
Hold on, and I'll go back to gallery view. I see nothing in chat. I don't see any hands, function keys raised. And the only one I saw with a hand up is Katie. But she was just...
No, I'm just trying to fix this thing sticking out the side of my head. Nothing else.
Joe is here. Do you need to say anything, Joe?
No, I'm sorry, but I couldn't get home in time
Okay.
to check in.
All right. Joe has no comments either.
Hi, I have a question.
Yep.
Hi, I'm
Just
a
name and address,
resident.
please.
Hi, yes, my name is Donna Clancy, and I own a home on Arkansas Street in Marshfield.
Okay.
And I know that this is what you're addressing now is changing from B3 to R3. And I don't understand what that means.
Great.
So currently it's zoned commercial, but all of the properties in that area are now residential.
Mhm.
So we're reverting it to the residential, which is, if you look on the map, everything that's in white with the
Yes.
gray buildings and stuff are the R3 residential 3 district, which is a 10,000 square foot zone. So the change is to basically remove the business district and revert it back to the residential district that it surrounds it.
Okay, that's great. I have no objection to that at all.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else here from the public at all? All right, seeing none, Greg, you can move on.
Okay. Going to share. Are we back on the? Yep.
There you go.
Why doesn't it? Oh, I got to go to slideshow again. 13. Okay. Article 13 is we're making, so we've tinkered with this in the past for the nonprofit educational, but we're now matching the state zoning language on what people call the Dover Amendment, which is the educational exemption amendment to the state law. And that's, instead of saying public, we said educational purposes on lands owned or leased by the Commonwealth or its agencies, or you have religious sects or denominations, or nonprofit educational corporations. So our language would, local zoning language would now be in full compliance. I don't see any hands up. And hold on, don't see any chat. So I guess we will continue on to Article 14. There we go. Article 14 is a change. We would be removing the special permit requirement to the accessory apartments. So it requires changes in 2 locations. One in the table of use, which you see that it would be allowed in R1, R2, R3, and B2. And then in the text, we would be changing it from the special permit to a review by the building commissioner to ensure that the review criteria is met by removing the requirement for the transfer of ownership to having to get a new permit, and by removing the recertification by owner-occupied people every January. And I do not see any hands. I don't see anything in chat. Oh, we have Scott Dixon.
Hi, Scott. Here's to a name and address. I get to unmute. Sorry, Scott. I get to unmute. Greg, while he's unmuting, can you bring it back up on the screen, the chart?
Sure.
Scott, in your little box. There you go. You got it.
Can you hear me?
We got you now. Yeah, just name and address, then go ahead.
Sure. Scott Dixon, 82 Ocean Street. I think the language is excellent. Being in the Brant Rock area, there's a fair number of properties that could potentially qualify for this. And I think the goals are admirable to create more affordable housing and more flexibility for perhaps older people that want to stay on their property longer. My question, Greg, is if I read the language correctly, if this would apply if you had to correct zoning, underlying zoning, but if you were in a pre-existing non-conforming lot, you would probably still need to go through the special permit process. Is that correct?
This is not in a straight exemption for pre-existing non-conforming, but you would go to the building department in order to see if it would meet if it meets the criteria, it can be permitted by right.
You possibly still need a special permit, correct, if you're going to expand?
Yeah, the question was more or less if somebody had, it's not me, I don't happen to have this situation. I don't have a garage on my property, but if somebody did have a garage on their property and they wanted to put an accessory apartment above it, perhaps.
No, it's not for a separate building.
If it's attached to garage, you could.
If it's an attached garage, you can. The way the accessory apartment bylaw was written years ago was specifically for the main building. It was not for accessory buildings.
Okay.
This does not change that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Scott.
Joe Pesovich has a question.
Sure, go ahead, Joe.
Can you explain the assignment of permits to B2? And why is it assigned to B2 and not to B1 and B3?
Well, I think Greg can answer that.
I'm trying to think about it right now.
Well, when you think about it, B1 is all the large tracts of business land for the most part.
Well, B1 already has been recently changed in zoning to allow apartments above.
Yeah.
B2 does not, so that's the reason why.
And B3?
B3 and B4, we did not have either residential apartments above, or actually B3 in the Brant Rock Village area does, but not the other. There's a couple of other B3s.
So you wouldn't allow that in Brant Rock?
In the Brant Rock overlay, you have the ability to have residential units above.
Thanks.
Yep. And then the final article is for the street banners. This took a little bit of thinking and a lot of discussion with Scott Dixon and others. And we had decided to, instead of just make this a Brant Rock change, that we would make it townwide. For the street banners for community service announcements, etc.
So did somebody go to apply for one in Brant Rock and was denied? Is that how it came up?
I can give you a version of an answer to that.
Sure, Joe, I'll listen.
That's Joe.
Yeah, when the Brant Rock Village Association wanted to do that, we were told that the town would have to pay insurance on those banners. Like they could maybe blow off and hit somebody in the head. That's the explanation we got from the selectman's office. So we didn't get to do that. We had raised money to do that. And then we were told we couldn't because the town would incur some liability exposure.
Okay. Greg, has this passed the building commissioner and the selectman yet?
It has. We've had discussions with the building commissioner. He's okay with it. We've had discussions with the town administrator, but not directly with the board of selectmen yet. They're aware of this. I thought they were in support of the idea of making it community-wide versus just a specific area. And Scott Dixon has his hand up.
Yeah, if I could.
It takes me a minute.
Hi, Scott Dixon, 82 Ocean Street. So building on what Joe said, the Brant Rock and now the original Brant Rock Village Association has been trying to do some things to dress up the Esplanade and make it more attractive and draw more attention to it. And one of the ideas has been to put Welcome to Historic Brant Rock banners on the utility poles, much as you might see in a Newport, Rhode Island, or even downtown Plymouth by the waterfront. So upon further research and working with Greg and others on this, what we've discovered is the town has not really been the key roadblock here. Verizon, who is the owner of the poles, will not allow that kind of signage on their utility poles. So we've been in contact with this gentleman named Terrence Toland, and he will allow us to hang American flags on those utility poles. He views any kind of specific signage like "Welcome to Historic Brant Rock" almost as an advertisement. And despite our best attempt to convince him that it's really not an advertisement, he's not having it. So we've moved to Plan B, which is American flags on those poles. And we're trying to have those up by Memorial Day of this year. But this signage, and the reason for this bylaw is, in the future, we would like to do some additional things in the area that would require this kind of permit. And the way Greg has put the language in there is it's only possible if the utility approves the signage. And in this particular case, they have not yet. I hope that's not confusing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you, Scott.
Yep.
Mary Murphy.
Yep.
And then
Mary,
we have
name and address and go ahead. Mary, you're muted, so if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. My name's Mary Murphy. I was the original, or the president of the Brant Rock Village Association, not the originals, but I have a little bit of a different view than Scott, based upon my interpretation in dealings with Verizon. And actually speaking with Verizon, it was my understanding that, the town, the Verizon will only work with the municipality. And so the town really needs to step forth. They need to apply for the application. As Scott mentioned, flags are definitely, something that will be allowed, and it is allowed, and it's allowed not just in Massachusetts, but like all over New England. The gentleman that Scott was talking about apparently manages like 3 million poles in New England. But at the end of the day, the people that need to be behind it are the town and the selectmen, and they need to be the people that go forth and approve it. I know that some of the bylaws need to be changed, but it was my understanding, Scott, that it just needed to go to zoning. And if zoning approved it, it would be fine. As you guys probably know today, like even in the center during Memorial Day, the town really only puts up flags for a very short period of time. And it's my understanding it's all about liability. So that's my 2 cents. My perspective is just a little bit different, but I do support flags, whether it be American flags or banners or whatever. Again, my perspective is just a little bit different. My perspective is it's a little bit more of a roadblock from the town versus Verizon, because it feels like if the town's all in and they're all going for these licenses with Verizon will work together just to make it happen.
All right. Thank you, Mary.
Yep.
We got Joe, and then Scott's got his hand back up.
All right. Go ahead, Joe.
Just a quick observation, when you drive through a town like Weymouth or Bridgewater or Holbrook, they have banners on utility poles that honor veterans. They'll have a photograph of a veteran and a little information about when he served. So if they can do it, I don't know why we can't do something like that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Scott?
Yeah, Scott Dixon, 82 Ocean Street. I would love to see Welcome to Historic Brant Rock banners on the utility poles, but Verizon has been very specific with me in writing that that is not going to happen. That it's not a town of Marshfield decision; it's a Verizon decision. So I forwarded that information over to Mike Moresco, so he has it. He's working with the town council to create a memorandum of understanding between the town of Marshfield and Verizon to allow us to hang the American flags. So that's kind of Plan B, and that's what we're moving. If anything changes with Verizon and they're more flexible on the Welcome to Brant Rock banners, I'd love to move in that direction, but we're trying to accomplish something and get something to happen by this summer. So
it would
Okay,
actually be kind of interesting too. I think not just Welcome to Brant Rock, because obviously they won't allow that by region or village, but Welcome to Marshfield with, I think, like the 7 village listed but I don't even think that's an option, just one banner for the town. I think it's more, can we get American flags?
All right, well, let's see where we go with this article, and then sounds like the selectman will be in charge of it after that.
It's specifically so in the zoning bylaw, you don't need to go for a special permit or variance or something from the ZBA first and then go to the select board. It's basically, you go to the select board, you go to the utilities, and you figure it out from there.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Was that the last one to go through?
That's the last one.
Okay, you want to vote to move those forward to town meeting? They're already there.
You can if the board members want, or you could wait for the full board, but I would need to run it through them again anyway. So
yeah.
I guess you guys could vote tonight if you'd like.
All right. Any questions from the board?
No.
Okay, seeing none, I'll make a motion that we move the articles that Greg discussed tonight forward to town meeting. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell. Aye, Katie O'Donnell.
Nick?
Nick Papastratus, aye.
And Mike Viviano, aye. Okay, thank you, Greg. Moving on to the MBTA communities presentation and discussion. Who's here for that, Greg?
It's going to be me. Hold on one second. I want to get it in slideshow before I get up. No, can't do that way. One of these days.
That's all right. Well, he's working on that. Let's do the minutes of approve the minutes of 123:23. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell. Aye, Katie O'Donnell.
Nick?
Nick Papastratus, aye.
Great. Mike Viviano, aye. Those minutes are approved and the train horn's blowing. It's ready to go.
All right. I'm going to try to go through because a lot of these slides are similar to the recent presentation I've done to the select board. This slide is the actual language, zoning language in state law. This is kind of a breakdown. MBTA communities shall have a zoning ordinance or bylaw that provides for at least one district of what they say is a reasonable size in which multifamily housing is permitted by right. Said district shall have a minimum gross density of 15 units per acre. Said district shall be located not more than a half mile from a commuter rail station, subway station, ferry terminal, or bus station. Can't have age restricted for the housing, and the housing has to be suitable for children. Originally, it did not allow for the town to require affordable housing, but they have changed the guidelines to allow the communities to ask for at least 10%. Here's the 3 discretionary funds that are tied to if you do not become a compliant community, you lose out on these 3 grant programs, which is the Housing Choice Grant Program, the Local Capital Fund, and the MassWorks. Presently, the town, and in the recent past, the town has not used any of these funds. They have applied guidelines. It's kind of, it's still not clear what guidelines are versus CMR or state law. They do ask, if you see down here under adjacent communities at the bottom, they say that 10% of the town's housing stock needs to be multifamily. Marshfield is currently close to 18% of our total housing stock is attached housing, so we already exceed that. Here's the map showing all the MBTA communities with the colors. The gray ones are not. You can see Marshfield as identified as an adjacent community. To get 15 units per acre, we'd probably need about 77 acres or more to make sure we cover buffer and parking requirements. We'll know more after we run the MBTA's. They have a whole program and stuff. Karen has started working on that. We'll know more once, exactly how many acres we would need. The town has recently done a number of changes, including this upcoming town meeting. We're changing the accessory apartments from special permit to by right. That's actually one of the things that MBTA communities also require, but isn't one of the main things that are talked about. Why we're having this discussion is Marshfield did not submit an action plan by the January 31st deadline because the action plan wanted us to identify potential areas for rezoning. Town staff and town board of select board and town administrator and the rest of us did not feel comfortable about identifying an area without at least having some public discussion. DHCD expects us to have this zoning change in place by December 31st, 2024. So we roughly have 3 town meetings in order to get this done. Here is their compliance model. It is
Greg,
gonna-
can I ask you a quick question? Sorry. They're expecting us to have it rezoned if we choose to participate, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think they feel we have a choice, but yes, they expect us to have this done by December 31st, 2024. This is
Why do they think we don't have a choice?
Because they feel the state law is clear that we have to do this.
And we're under the, are we under the council that we are not required to do this?
Council has initially weighed in that it was not clear about the MBTA communities. Council has not further pursued that at the moment. I know the administration has had a number of contacts with some state officials who are pushing Marshfield to comply. So anyway, this is the process. I've added these 2 slides because the process specifically says we should not have excluded lands or sensitive lands in the areas that we designate. They are very prescriptive. It doesn't give us a lot of flexibility. The toughest part is they want us to have 50 contiguous acres. That is not an easy thing to do. And you can see the list on that slide, excluded land features and sensitive lands features. They also say that they don't want us to have partial lots in our zoning map. We have a number of zoning districts that have partial boundaries. So I would propose if we were to go forward with this, that we would want to do this as an overlay district, even though I think we have enough overlay districts zoning wise on the map. That's the way we should probably do it. So we don't have to get into redistricting a bunch of different half in and half out parcels. Very important note, the state does allow a community to include land that's already developed. And that's something that when we show you that what we've come up with, we'll talk about again. As I noted, they both in their compliance document, they clearly say that if you come up with a lot of land that's either excluded or sensitive, you should probably look at a different area. So we did do a first run, and again, the state wants it a half mile within a train station, along transit routes, in villages or downtowns, and along commercial areas. So our map that we have up shows the Gatra bus line that comes in from Dexbury, comes up to the senior center, goes around past the Brant Rock Market, goes around 139, through the downtown, by the library, by Star Market, then goes up 3A, and then comes back over onto Furnace Street, and then out onto 139, and it ends up at the Stop and Shop in Pembroke, where it turns around, and then it goes all the way through, and it ends up at the Kingston Collection in down in Kingston. You can see by the map, all the colored areas are either excluded or sensitive areas. There are no areas in town that meet this 50-acre contiguous lands outright. Unless we were to, if you see also up in the north end of town, you have some white where there's already existing subdivisions. So we could potentially take a big section of Deer Hill and rezone it as an MBTA community. I don't think the residents of that area would like that, number one. And number two, it is not near a transit route. It is not zone commercial. It is not, so it does not meet the state criteria and the state may not approve of it. So when we did our second run through, which Karen then started opening up and using some of the state's GIS layers and stuff, we followed the existing GATRA route. We checked village centers. We checked commercial and industrial zoned areas. I'll have you note that also MAPC has recently recommended against using any more industrial land for housing. We already have one built 40B in our industrial area, PMUD area, and we have a second one, a large one right next to it. So we do already have a lot of housing in our industrial area. We've tried to avoid excluded lands. We've tried to avoid sensitive lands. We also tried not to overload one particular area in town. And we tried to look at existing, improving existing land uses if possible. So say you had automobile repairs in a water resource protection district, it may be better to have residential units with a upgraded or packaged treatment plant versus oils and paints and other things in the water resource protection district. So we looked at the downtown, and Library Plaza, you can see, has got a lot of color in it, and the Star Plaza has also a lot of color in it. So we couldn't come up with the 50 acres there. We looked at the B2 and the industrial and the PMUD areas, and you can see again, you have a lot of either sensitive or excluded lands. There's also a cold water brook that's running through here, which is the state would like those protected. And up on the B2, you can see that pink area. That is the Water Resource Protection District for both the Union Street wells to the left and the Furnace Brook wells to the right. So again, we didn't come up with right off the bat, okay, here's a 50-acre site. We did come up with, after Karen and I ran through it a couple of times, with 3 less than perfect areas, and we'll just describe those. But again, we feel that there needs to be some public, discussion. The select board need to think about it, and the planning board needs to think about it. So the first area that we identified was that B2 district from School Street over to the Granite Place right by the high school and the middle school. That's roughly 84 acres. However, almost all of it is in the Water Resource Protection District, and it is considered a sensitive area. The majority of the area is identified currently with either 1969 through 71 era apartment multifamily units, which is about 700 units in there. And it has a lot of commercial uses, and it also has 3 of the 4 automobile service or repair facilities in that WRPD. The second one's across the street, which is in the middle of the industrial district. Connor's land is here, Smith is over here. Again, you have Water Resource Protection District in the north, you have the brook, the Coldwater Brook, you have other sensitive areas. It's roughly 76 acres if we took property lines, use the property lines, et cetera, for that. If we were to develop that for housing, that cuts out half of the industrial land and basically removes probably 70% of the remaining vacant industrial land or underutilized industrial land. The third area is over by the downtown. We have Walgreens over here on the left. This is 3A and 139, McDonald's and stuff. We have Mariners Hill back here. And we have the lumber company. And then this is the town hall over here. That would be about 51 acres. It has Taylor Lumber, Walgreens, as I said. There are a lot of sensitive and excluded lands. There's also what I'm not really thrilled with. We have single family homes here on T-Rock Lane. And I'm not sure trying to put more left-hand turns on this 4-lane section of 139 and 3A is the best idea. We have traffic lights on either ends, but there is no center turning aisle. And it is not easy, as if you're coming out of McDonald's or other places, to take lefts to get out. This would also be adding to a concentration of multifamily housing, meaning you have the Mariners Hill, and you also have all the age restricted in the back here. So that was another thing that we thought about with that one. And final note, if we were to decide to continue working on the MBTA Community Action Plan, the planning staff would recommend that first one that we talked about, the B2, mainly because we can count those existing apartments, and the likelihood of those existing apartments or condos being redeveloped is difficult. So it would mainly fall to some of the uses that are closer to the high school, like the Granite Company, Luchetti's, DJ Sullivan, the storage building and stuff would be, things that will likely be developed. So that's the current status of the MBTA communities as far as staff or the board to consider. And you guys don't have to take any action right now, but it was just to inform you. The selectmen would probably want your thoughts before they take any action.
So can you follow up with Galvin again and find out if we're truly being forced to do this?
I will. I have a feeling he will say yes, where he's starting to feel the pressure, but I will double check with him.
Okay. Any questions on the board?
I don't really have any questions right now. I think it's a good idea to follow up with Galvin. But I also, Greg, I just really appreciated everything that you and Karen have done with this. And I know that this has been in the news a lot and for other communities as well. And I think it's just such a good example of why, like, trying to use the same brush for every community in Massachusetts does not make sense. We're called Marshfield and all of the sensitive areas and everything. It's clearly so challenging. So I appreciate how detailed your explanation was.
Anyone from the public? Okay. All right. Thank you, Greg.
Yep.
All right. We'll move on to the possible enforcement for Adelaide.
So I've been sending you guys emails keeping you up to speed with what's going on with the Adelaide subdivision. The 4 issues that we specifically have where they have not met conditions of special permits that the board has granted are the fence along the top of the retaining wall between lots 9 and 13, the installation of the retaining wall behind lots 12 and 13, the installation of the WRPD monitoring wells on lots 1, 5, and 9, and reviewing monitoring well reports on nitrogen loading, which we have not seen anything yet on those. And part of the concern is Spectrum Homes has been trying very hard to sell the last 2 lots, 1 and 5, which are still under covenant, and those are where the monitoring wells are supposed to be closest to Webster Street. And unfortunately, recently, the attitude has been from Spectrum Homes, especially with our troubles with lot 12 and the retaining wall that's supposed to be behind that home, is, we sold it, we're not responsible for it. And the new owner's attitude is, well, I bought it, I'm not responsible for it. They are clearly conditions of those special permits, and they need to modify or come up with either a proposal to modify, or the board would have to see, okay, we don't need these. I really don't think the monitoring wells is something that the board could find that we don't need. I have had a number of discussions with the building commissioner, and he would feel more comfortable on enforcement action, meaning that he would start fining them if the planning board voted asking him for enforcement. I would say that we have received a recent email from Mr. Gibbs where he is talking about coming in for a modification to the lot 12 and 11 issue. But he still hasn't said anything or done anything towards the monitoring well concerns. And if the board were to vote for asking the building commissioner for enforcement actions, I would put it with the caveat if and when the modifications are filed for all four concerns that I've listed, then the enforcement action or request could be dropped, because then we would have him working towards resolving these issues.
Greg, it's the fence, the wall, the wells, and what was the fourth one?
The monitoring reports on the nitrogen loading.
Okay, we can't get that without the wells anyway, right?
Right.
Yeah. So the fence needs to go up on top of those walls because it's more than a 4-foot drop. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so I mean, there's clearly a safety issue going on there, which they should have this fence put up there. The wall issue between Greg and the neighbor. So the neighbor now owns the lot, correct?
Well, not the neighbor, the new property owner. So
The new property owner, sure, that's
Yeah.
what I meant to say. Yep. So the new property owner owns it and doesn't want to put this wall in,
correct.
and he's claiming that what Greg never told him it needed to go in.
Yes.
Okay.
And Greg claims that he sold it, so now he's not responsible for it. I've explained to Greg that it's part of a special permit that he was the applicant and he is responsible for.
So I would be in favor of giving Andrew the okay for enforcement on all of them. If the new owner wants to come in with some kind of modification to the plan and he wants us to revisit the wall, we'd be open to listening to that, I believe.
Well, that's apparently what Greg Gibbs or Spectrum Homes is now working on, that they
Okay.
would take it for both 11 and 12,
Yep.
but we have not seen anything to date. And this has been going on for a while.
Okay. Personally, I'd be in favor of sending Andrew for enforcement on all three of them then. Especially the monitoring wells, which should have already been in.
So, Greg, I guess the question I have, the enforcement would be for both Spectrum Homes and for a private resident. Is that correct?
Two separate ones.
My first thought was it was Spectrum Homes first, but yes, you could do it to both the property owners and Spectrum Homes. I would want to double check with town council on that one point though.
I mean, I guess obviously it's unfortunate that the buck is being passed by Spectrum Homes. So, I mean, I would start with Spectrum Homes. I feel like that is an unfair situation with the resident, but I don't know the legal ramifications of that.
So my recommendation is to start with Spectrum Homes.
We'll find out from town council if it can even go to Spectrum Homes. If the enforcement on that wall can even go to that.
From my discussion with town council, it seems like he feels is something we could do because he said, are they going to force us to take them to court?
Okay. Yeah, well, hopefully Greg Gibbs just comes in and files for a modification. We can look at it and see what his plan is. So I'll make a motion unless you have anything to say, Katie, you good?
No, I think we're all in agreement.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we, what are we doing? Asking Andrew?
Asking Andrew to take enforcement to require the special permit conditions to be met.
Okay, so moved as Greg just worded it. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell. Aye, Katie O'Donnell.
Nick?
Nick Papastratus, aye.
And Mike Viviano, aye. Okay, thank you,
And
Greg.
Mike, just to remind everybody, if we do get a modification request covering these items, then the enforcement can stop.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Yep. All right, let's see. I'll go back to Greg for the staff report.
So the next select board meeting, I will be doing the presentation again to them. If the planning board, has an opinion before I do the presentation, I will give them their planning board's recommendation as well. I expect that shortly afterwards, the select board will make a decision on what they're going to want to do about compliance. I will say that Karen and I have also started reading some of the other action plans that were filed. There seems to be a number of communities that filed them, but have major concerns or did not really do what the action plan asked them to do. We are one of 4 communities in the MBTA communities thing that have not filed a compliance action plan yet.
Okay, it's good info. Thank you. I think I would probably wait to give you my opinion until I hear from town council.
Okay, I will try to get that as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Karen, do you have anything?
Is that it, Greg?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any board reports from anyone? Nope. Okay, great. Oh, thank you, Greg. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, everyone else, for being here tonight. I'll make a motion to adjourn 7:52. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell. Aye, Katie O'Donnell.
Thank you, Nick.
Nick Papastratus, aye.
And Mike Viviano, aye. Okay, thank you again.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.